We are the Iron Disciples. In this podcast, we talk about bodybuilding, dating, finances with the goal of being a better man, son, brother, husband, and father with the focus of building strong families. Exploring these topics from a biblical standpoint, how to do these things as Christian men. Hello.
Yes, welcome, guys. We have special guests. They're always special. And Shannon we have over here, and we got Mike. Without further ado, we're going to open with a little prayer. Would any of you guys like to open?
We can do it. We can do it.
I like when you do it.
All right. What are you guys going to have?
Lord Jesus, thank you so much for these fine young men. Thank you for the opportunity to talk on this platform. Thank you for our audience. We pray that this podcast will give some knowledge, share some stories, and ultimately glorify you, Lord. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
That was the first time we were able to hold hands. Last time we had to kind of touch toes
Yeah.
because we couldn't reach.
It was a little further away.
A little further away,
Mike.
but that's great. So today's topic, we're talking about exercise, fitness, our life journeys with them. These two gentlemen sitting before us have extensive experience in different domains in fitness, and especially Shannon here has been working out since he's, 20 years old?
14.
14.
14.
And how old are you now?
48.
That's right. Us men, we're not afraid to talk about the real numbers. 48. Proud. We look up to him. And to be honest, the first time I saw Shannon, he was doing some of the hardest lifts in the world. So tell us about that journey. If you want to break it open for us, Shannon.
For training, how I started.
For
in the
sure.
gym.
Tell us a little bit about your life in the exercise.
Well, I was spent a lot of time with a friend of mine. We were both new to the school district. His name's Josh. And we were watching TV. I'm probably 13 years old, and they had I think it was called SoloFlex then. It's morphed into a bunch of different forms or company names. And the guy was jacked, and he was, working out with this piece of equipment. And I'd never even considered lifting weights or anything like that at 13. I didn't think about it. And my friend Josh looked at the TV and he said, "There's no way that machine makes you look like that, because if it did, I'd have it." And I thought,
Sounds like an arrogant kid.
nah, he's, but he was, if you saw how big he got later in life, he won competitions and stuff like that.
Wow.
But he's still one of my very best friends. Talked to him on the phone yesterday, actually. You guys will meet him soon because he's coming down for a visit. But
Cool.
he kind of piqued my interest at that point when he started talking about lifting weights, and I realized that you could actually change the way you look,
Mm-hmm.
and that intrigued me. So a couple years later, they offered a weightlifting course at my high school, and I was lucky enough because I lived just north of Cincinnati, and the weight training coach, or the guy who taught the weight training class, was also the strength training coach for the Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, wow.
So
Some serious expertise in
From
your corner.
from a very young age, when I first got into the, lifestyle of lifting weights and exercise, I had the right teachers, and when you have the right teachers who share an enthusiasm, that you're, and pique your interest in it and keep you motivated, and then teach you proper form. And when you're doing the proper form and you start, eating properly, you get the results. It just happens. It's like,
So you
pays
lucked
off.
out.
Lucked out big time. But
Yeah.
I think about, how that's impact. I always look back to those roots in the beginning of doing this, and how that's probably set the foundation. And it's funny because, I've been up and down in my life many times, way down, but I've always had the iron, and I always thought to myself, even when I had nothing and I was on the floor, I was like, I still got the gym no matter what. I still got the gym. I can still work on my body. It's a way to progress. It always kept me from just, going off the deep end, it always pulled me back when I was about to go off the deep end, so
That
it's always
discipline,
been,
yeah.
it's always been kind of a base for me. But then from there, I worked out all the way through high school, and then
So mostly powerlifting, compound, Olympic lifts, that type of stuff?
it was more just strength training, bodybuilding type stuff. When
okay.
When I was,
Okay.
if you want to call it bodybuilding, more just for athleticism, because I was kind of
Like
one
a
of those
football style.
Yeah,
of
football
lifting.
style
Lift
lifting,
heavy,
yeah,
mix of strength, progressive.
Squat,
overload.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly, progressive overload. And then I went into the military, worked out while I was in the military too, in the infantry. Worked out when I was in Korea. I found a couple of guys that like to go to the gym. We would, when I was I had a bodybuilder for a platoon sergeant too. He was a big dude, awesome guys from Alabama, big black dude. Like, he was just kind of took me under his wing. He was older. He was like maybe like late 30s. Just one of the kindest people you could ever meet. And you know, I know when you know, that's when you look at skin tone under the light, that's why they tan you, right? Because you can see the definition.
Right.
So I mentioned his skin color because he was a bodybuilder and his skin was really dark.
Get
and
that
he
3D
just looked
look.
so awesome, you know, he was so massive. And we were in PT in the morning, and he's like, and he kind of talked kind of fast. He says, boys, you think this working out here in the morning is real PT? This ain't nothing. You boys need to be going to the gym after you know, you get off duty during the day. And he looked at me and he says, Allie, you have a bodybuilder's physique. And I said, what do you mean? He says, trust me, if you stay with it, you're going to look, you know, you have that physique. So, and that, you know, just kind of motivated me a little more to stay in it. And shoot, got out of the military and ended up moving down to Florida, and we lifted down there. And then my wife and I ended up moving back home because we had my son.
Ohio, right?
Yeah, from from Sarasota back home. And we got our first apartment, and I think I told you guys where the
bed.
Yeah, it was like an 800 square foot apartment, and where the kitchen dining room table would have sat, I had a weight bench, which drove my ex-wife crazy. She hated it being there, but I was like, man, working out, I got to do it. I can't afford a gym. You know, we were broke, and so you know, lifted all the way. You know, the rest kept going, and was, you know, worked out with different people, and we ended up moving to Florida. Or before we moved to Florida, I actually got in trouble. You guys know I got in trouble with the law, and I ended up becoming a trainer while I was waiting to go to court because I was waiting to go to sentencing. I thought I might end up going to prison. And I met JD, who you guys now know.
Oh, yeah, JD, man. Shout out to you, brother.
Yeah, you guys now know JD. He and I butted heads pretty hard, but at first, but then we realized we both were very.
That would have been a showdown right there.
Yeah. it literally, when they tried to, we had a disagreement and they tried to fire me. He was trying to escort me out, and I walked him real close to the steps one time, like on the way out, and I kind of like nudged him, and he almost fell over the thing, and I was ready to throw down with him right there, you know. And
no way.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. He probably remembers that because it was like as the stairs, where the stairs come down and the handle, barrister or whatever, what do they call it?
The handle, the guardrail, whatever.
Yeah, it was there right in the middle. When I walked, I nudged him into it, and he almost fell over it. And he didn't do anything because we're in the middle of the gym. I don't know. JD's a big dude, man. He probably could have whooped me, but I didn't care. I didn't care about anything at that point in time because I was waiting. You know, I thought I was going to prison.
Trying to get that hard feeling about you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But we learned pretty shortly, and then his boss chastise him for firing me, so they asked me to come back, and then he and I were kind of around each other, and just somehow we just started listening to each other when we were talking and realized we actually were very much alike.
They say that, you know, like the guys who kind of, you know, and they're similar, so they kind of don't like each other.
Yeah,
sometimes it's the way it is.
Well, he was a combat medic, and I have a nursing degree, and so, you know, we realize we share similar knowledge, and we have a passion for training and strength training, and you know, and then we also share a passion for helping people. You know, like that's really what it comes down to. When you become a trainer, you don't become a trainer because I don't know any trainer, not very many that I know personally, that are in it for the money. They're in it because they care about other people. I mean, everybody I know that's,
like you said, the Red Sox, or that guy was helping you out.
Cincinnati Reds.
Reds. He's helping a kid out.
Yeah. His son was my age, graduated with me, Jeff Ruff. But and then I didn't end up going to prison, and started a business with my buddy Joshua I mentioned earlier. We started a roofing company. We blew that up, and then I sold my shares to him and his brother and started another company, and my wife and I made a bunch of money, so we moved to Florida, started a marketing company. And we lived in Orlando, and I was learning. JD kind of got me interested in powerlifting and the West Side Barbell and all that stuff, functional training. So when I came down here, I met Brian Schwab, who is in Orlando. He holds a bunch of world records for age group, and he started training me for like 2 years in powerlifting. So he was, I mean, think about that, a world-class powerlifter. I had him training me. I mean, you're just talking about really amazing athletes who know their craft and know what they're doing, guiding you.
Did you like find these dudes, or did this just
It just
because you're
happened.
lucky with
It just happened, man.
That's
You know, it just
amazing.
happened. Yeah.
Well, Shannon's good at meeting people.
He's expert at
Yeah,
that.
like he's a
Expert.
recruiter for our Iron disciples. So like if there's a chance you're in his proximity,
it's a magnet.
yeah, he's a magnet. You're gonna get to know
Get over
him.
here.
So yeah,
Throughout this whole time period from 14, was there time that you ever like took off fitness, like you
Only when I would be injured.
injured? Okay.
That's the only
So
time.
you're stuck to it hard.
Yeah. Now the problem was before I met the next guy I'm going to tell you about, I would have an injury that, like, you know, maybe tendonitis in my forearm or something that I couldn't get rid of, and I would just quit going. I was like, well, if I can't work my whole body, then I'm not going to work out. That was a huge mistake. So there were times when I would take 6 months at a time off through that, you know, that spell, even longer sometimes, you know.
Was
That's
that
the
mostly for tendonitis and
Just tendonitis pretty much was what it was.
overuse
you know?
injuries?
Overuse, yeah.
Nothing, no big tears or nothing like that.
No. I actually did get. I did have. What do you call it? Hernia.
Okay.
Not bilateral, because that's not actually the term. It was on both sides, but that's not the term.
Umbilical.
To get surgery for it?
Just an umbilical hernia.
No, what's the not in linguinal?
Inguinal.
It's right here though. Is that it? I
Yeah.
thought linguinal was in the
Yeah.
crotch. No.
I don't know.
Anyway,
It's a hernia.
So I got surgery for that, and as soon as I got surgery for that, right back in the gym, because I was off for about a year and I got real fat. I was like 125 years old or 125 pounds and 225 pounds.
I was gonna say, whoa.
I was like, wow.
Look,
Lost
look.
125 years old, 125 pounds.
I mean, I was miserable, but I couldn't do it. Hell, I couldn't even walk
Yeah.
like a mile without being in pain.
Yeah,
no,
it's
hernia
just- they're
hernia
hardcore.
surgeries, for anybody who doesn't know what a hernia is, it's when your intestines break through your abdominal wall. So obviously laughing, eating, taking a crap, all that stuff is extremely powerful, and the recovery
it on-
for it's
Painful.
I had it
long.
on both sides.
Yeah, that's brutal, man.
So I got the surgery, and I had 6 weeks. 6 weeks they wouldn't let me work out, and I'm telling you, on the day of the 6th week was up, I was in the gym, and so that started the process of, you know, that actually happened before I moved to Florida. I was powerlifting after that surgery, and then I met a guy named Vinny Tardo, who's a professional bodybuilder. And he helped me with my diet because I'd never had a 6-pack or anything like that. I always worked out, but, you know, he taught me a lot about nutrition, and changed my life. That was over 5 years ago, and I got shredded, and just he recomped my body, brought all the fat and water off me.
I saw those
know.
pictures. You look fantastic.
I appreciate it.
Like phenomenal.
And he taught me how to train differently, and I trained smarter. And he also taught me, you know, if you have an injury, he taught me how to get over those injuries. He taught me to stay with the training, even if you are injured, work around it. You got to keep in the mindset and stay in the environment.
It's a
even
sign
when
of
you-
a lifer right there. A guy who does it, you know, for more aspects than just aesthetics. Like, you know, he's going to work out his whole life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's good.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And I still love Vinny. Like, he's one of my brothers. I've been wanting him to come down. He's just allergic to cats, so he can't stay at my house. I have cats at the house. And I always tell Mike about him because I'd like for them to meet.
Yeah, I'd love to meet him. He sounds like a really good guy.
Yeah. And then I met Mike, and Mike is the last one so far on my list of, you know, high class trainers that know their stuff. And I've learned a lot from Mike. He's helped me change, even more knowledgeable. I'm now even more knowledgeable about diet and, you know, nutrient density and training smarter. You know, he's taught me about the, you know, insertion to origin exercises, and you know, I'm doing even better. So I've really had amazing influences, you know, and teachers, Mike being the last one in the line so far.
The last samurai,
Yeah.
you could say.
And it's just been a great journey, man. The training has always been there for me, and it's always a crutch for me. And I love how you guys, you know, John always says, he says that he relates training and the suffering to,
Yeah.
you know, being a Christian, and how we, you know, put ourselves through pain.
Discipline. Yeah.
And the discipline of it, and, you know, the voluntary suffering, and doing it joyfully and finding joy in it, you know,
Yep.
because it is painful. And I know a lot of people don't work out because it's painful. And it's like anything else, anything worth working for, anything worth having is going to be painful. It's going to take time, and it's going to be painful. It's like,
That's right.
it's like the allegory of the cave, though, you know, like Socrates, you know, it's like once you learn something, once you change, you can't go back. You can't go back to what you were before. You know, even if you lose even if I quit working out, I would look at myself in the mirror and want to be back where I was, and always have that motivation to get back, so.
And better. Yeah. Get on that mic, Shannon.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to, do the sign language. And one of the cool things that I really hear from this story is how he was accepting new knowledge, seeking it out, looking for new teachers, open to teaching, open to new stuff. You're not that same boomer grinding out the same workout he's had for 40 years, or whatever it is that he's been working
Gen
out.
X.
Wondering why
Gen
he
X.
doesn't
Well,
look
we see
different.
that mostly it's the boomers that are like that, though. The guys who they're
Yeah,
stuck
I'm not
in
a
their
boomer,
ways.
though.
No, you're not.
My
You're far-
parents are boomers.
Not
Right.
that old.
They get to a certain
But-
point where they stop learning or open to learning. That was the one thing that I noticed about you right away is you were just very like, let's soak it up, man. You didn't have an ego about it, nothing, right? Shannon looks better than me. Why is he taking my advice? He's like, yeah. He goes, oh, yeah, okay. I see your background. Absolutely. Like, what do I do?
Yep.
That's a sign of someone who's going to learn for the rest of their
Yep.
lives. And that's why you've been able to make phenomenal progress and gains
Mm.
because you're not afraid to learn and implement new things.
Exactly.
I thought that was
Yeah.
super cool.
And through the lows.
I do
Like-
want to thank Mike for just helping me out and
Oh,
being
brother.
there and just teaching me.
Yeah.
I think he's helped us all out at this point.
Yeah,
I know
for sure.
Mike's
Wealth
sure
of
showing me
knowledge.
some stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And another point, so he's willing to be open. He's seeking out knowledge. He's not accepting something because it's comfortable. He recognizes that this working out process is something that it's like, where is the new treasure at?
Yeah.
And then through the ups and the downs, it's not all about feeling good every day. And if you're working a full-time job, you have kids at home. You've lived a life where you have a full list of responsibilities every day. It's not like you have all this carved out time.
Mm-mm.
So, and you made time for it.
Well, I've always been my own boss I think I've collectively worked for other people maybe 2-3 years since I graduated high school, aside from my 2 years in the military. So it's something that I have to do, but being my own boss has always kind of permitted me to work out and fit it in somewhere. There was times where I've worked 80 hours a week where I did not have time to work out, and I got in pretty bad shape through it, because it's a lot of stress on the body. But it's like now I'm sharing it with my kids. You guys know that Gabby's working out with me.
She's
She's
amazing.
doing real good.
She's
Yeah.
really
making gains fast.
transformed.
She's lost almost 20 pounds in 4 months. She's
That's
really taken
amazing.
shape.
Yeah.
And people at the gym are coming over to her now almost daily and saying, wow, I can see a big difference in you. And I'm about to start working with her sister really soon, hopefully
Riley.
within the next few weeks, and get Riley in shape too.
Nice.
That's beautiful.
So
That's really cool.
I always wanted one of my kids to share my passion for training, because I love
For
it,
sure.
and it's just such a foundation, a base of strength to draw from. I mean, those endorphins. I try to explain to people. I said, listen, man, the best drug in the world, God made it inside you.
Yeah.
It's endorphins.
So true.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Mike and I always say, it's almost like he knows what he's
It's
doing.
almost like you know what he's doing. Yeah.
There's
God.
nothing like that feeling once you get done with a really good working
Nope.
set and your blood's pumping. You get that warrior feeling. I mean, your whole body's just vibrating and you're focused. Your hormones are
It
jacked.
lasts all day. It's not
Feels
like
amazing.
Fall in
And the
love
funny
with it.
thing
crash.
is,
It's not like doing a bunch of cocaine and then you
No,
crash and want to
it's-
kill yourself. It's like,
the funny thing is, it takes a lot of discipline to get to
That
the point
feeling
where
sucks.
you actually earn that feeling. So most people, when they go to the gym, they're like, "What the heck are you talking about?" I started working out last week. It sucks. It does suck, but it gets to a point where you embrace the suck
yeah.
and you push past that. And once you push past that, the reward is that it starts to feel good and you start to get addicted to it. And then people don't, you start being the weirdo of your friends who's like watching workout videos and buying pre-workouts and cutting the sleeves off your shirt and getting jacked is awesome, right? You're that weird guy. Throw your PS4 in the garbage, right? That's what happens.
You fall in
Yeah.
love with the pain.
Yeah.
That's the reward for going through the sucky part. And then it sucks when you don't work out.
True.
Then
Yeah.
the total 180 is where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so busy. I got to go work out. This
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah, I got to carve out some time.
Exactly. So you get the total opposite, which is really cool.
Or you get some
Yeah.
guys that end up overtraining, like John and
Oh,
I.
yeah.
Would just train too much, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
recovery would suffer because we'd love digging ourselves in the ground.
Yeah.
It's
There's
as
a point
hard,
of
as
diminishing returns.
brutally as you can go.
You got to take recovery
You
seriously.
can go
Yes.
there. So you
That's-
had a really sorry. What were you
I was gonna
saying,
say that's me, but I'm below 30, so I'm just gonna ride that.
Yeah.
train.
Yeah, hey.
31.
Yeah, you
30.
keep
You'll
training.
feel it.
Yeah, there you go.
Enjoy
Yeah.
it, brother. Enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Tendinitis starts setting in.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
usually it, yeah.
You've had a really well-rounded you've went through powerlifting discipline, athletic disciplines, bodybuilding disciplines within fitness, and I think that's just so cool. What do you feel like is your favorite out of all of those?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
What do you get
That
the
is a
most
good
joy
question.
out of?
there for a while I was doing what they were. It was kind of like a hybrid of power building. That's what they call it, where you kind of implement some powerlifting moves with bodybuilding stuff. That was kind of probably my favorite. But after talking to Mike, he says, hey man, if you're not competing, you don't need to be putting that weight on your shoulders. And it all really started to make sense to me. And I used to be 5'9". I'm not 5'9" anymore. So I think a lot of that has to do with my obsession with squatting over the last few years.
And to be clear, if you're not competing in a sport where you're squatting, bench pressing, or deadlifting, why push it to the limits? Is what I mean by that. Not like you don't have to lift heavy, but
right.
Yeah,
I don't do any of those things anymore. I don't do any of them anymore.
I mean, if you can, great, but there is a point of diminishing returns, obviously, with age and with performance. I think there's just much better exercises to do that have much more payoff without any or a lot less negative. Was the point of that?
Right.
Yeah.
The next step is jiu-jitsu with Mike here in the morning times.
Can't wait for that. That's cool.
Fun.
Yeah, gonna get into that. So I've done it before, but I'm gonna do it again, a little more serious this time.
Sure.
So,
You guys are going to be the most lethal duo in the group.
No kidding.
We know we're going to set the
Iron
demon on
disciple.
Yeah.
They're the security team.
when
there you go.
when we talk about training and how you become addicted to those endorphins and how I always tell people that it bleeds into other parts of your life, and I explain that to my daughter and, Gabby for probably 5 years. I've been trying to get her to work out, trying to get all my kids to work out, but I always had a feeling she would be the first one to really kind of zero in on it. Just so you guys know, I don't know if you guys know, but I think you guys do know Jake is starting to take care of himself and work out. He's dropped over 15 pounds in the last month or so. Yeah. But I asked Gabby, I think I told you guys maybe about a month and a half ago, I asked her, I said, so now that you've been in it for about 3 months, I said, how do you feel about just getting tasks done in your life? And we were standing in the kitchen. She just took her fist and went through them down like this. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
like that. And I was like, that's what I'm talking
Warrior.
about. Right there.
Exactly.
That's now you know what I've been trying to tell you all this time.
Not afraid of pain.
No, not afraid of pain,
Be
not afraid of
courageous.
challenge, not
No.
afraid to step
Bring it
out
on.
into the unknown and challenge yourself,
That's
because
right.
that's what it comes down to.
Hey, that's where
There's a-
God's gifts are.
Absolutely.
They're right
There's
there.
a lot where you
Amen.
learn, right? You learn wins and losses when you go to the gym.
That's right.
So if you're really pushing yourself, the win is that you went to the gym. So that's how you start chalking up wins, right? And when you start your fitness journey, so you're chalking up wins because you're actually getting to the gym, and then you start to get into the losses, where the losses start to teach you something where you're like, oh man, I missed that 225-pound bench. I've always wanted to bench 2 plates, but that teaches you something too, because then you come back and you're like, oh, I got 200. I'm almost there. And then the progressive overload sets in. If I just work a little harder, a little bit smarter, more consistent, and then you finally hit that.
And that transcends into other parts of your life.
Yes,
That's right.
Exactly.
So
Because
mine-
it's not fast progress. We all
No.
know being in the gym, it takes a long time to build a
And
physique.
you've never arrived.
You never arrive,
Never.
which is great. That happens
never
with
arrive.
music too, or many art forms and disciplines. There's whether it's
It's
jiu-jitsu,
a journey that
bodybuilding,
doesn't end.
right, karate, painting, music. They all have this never-ending envelope in which you're always trying to achieve better results. But especially in bodybuilding, when you say you change your body, those changes don't happen quickly, especially once you get past the newbie gains, maybe like the first 6-7 months. It's like then you have to really start to put it in the time in the diet, the exercises, how your body is different from someone else's, because every coach has a different regime that they preach, a different dietary. There's a bajillions of these out there.
Yeah.
So you have to really take the time to find out how your body reacts to these different diets or exercise programs, which takes months.
I
'Cause
really
you can't
love
just
that.
do it for a week. You can't just do it you really have to do it for a while to see how the adaptations occur and
Yeah.
whether they do or not.
Sometimes I
so-
hide that information from people that ask me, like, so how long did it take you to build, the strength you have? And it's like, I'm not going to tell them 5 years. Tell them because
Well-
they're going to give up. Like, I'm not starting that journey.
Most people aren't hyper responders. Most people are hypo responders. That's why the average person in the gym, although whether they're using PEDs or not, you'd never know. They don't look like competitors. They're just like average guys trying to make it to the gym every day. So if you're a hyper responder, you'd send a negative message because in telling the truth, somebody might think, well, he did it in 5 years, I can. Odds are a lot of people aren't hyper responders. They're just not. A lot of guys work out. You think maybe they're not taking that as seriously, but they've actually been working out for 10, 15, 20 years. They might have been a former athlete. They just don't look that great. Now, that's diet and habit and lifestyle and things like that too. But yeah, most people don't respond.
Happens
very
more
well.
often.
They could
than
be
you think.
healthy. They could be healthy,
Yeah,
but
there's
they
a
might
difference.
not look like a bodybuilder or
Right.
something. They might be athletic, but
Right.
they might not look like a bodybuilder. Like that's a big difference. There is looking great doesn't mean you're healthy.
Right.
And there's only a couple gene pools that allow you to be like a top bodybuilder. But being athletic and being healthy are two different totally things. So you can
100%.
accomplish those things in the gym.
I think you should tell the truth.
yes.
Because what it
Always.
reinforces is that intimacy with your own body and the hard work you have to put in. Because like you're saying, not everybody has to be a bodybuilder. If you're in the gym because you want to be healthy and you're just taking care of yourself, that's fine. You don't have to put in 2 hours a day and do the incredibly restrictive diet, as long as you're paying attention to your health and being disciplined with that, so that you understand what your goals are. You have to know what your goals are. For the people sitting around this table, it's definitely a huge part of our lives. It develops a lot of our character. We associate ourselves in this deeply. So, and it doesn't have to be that way for everybody. But that dialogue and the intimacy of finding out who you are and how you respond to things, for me, is the funnest part. Because like Shannon, I'm going to be in Shannon's shoes someday, God willing. And I'm going to have to adapt my workout process to my age. I'm going to have to listen. I'm going to have to seek out materials that are going to serve me as I begin to age and change. And that's why I love these things. It's like Joe was saying, the disciplines are so fantastic. And with that, I want to put some focus on you, Mike. So you're 33.
Yeah,
You've been doing this
34 next month.
34 next month?
Yep.
Awesome. And you've had a long experience and an education in it too. So you've put time, you've went to school, you've sort of been with masters and spent time with the masters. How did you begin taking interest? Kind of the same question we asked Shannon. How did you begin your fitness journey and your health journey, all that, whatever happened there?
Yeah. So growing up in Canada, my father was into bodybuilding, not competitively, but around all the bodybuilders and that sort of thing. We actually started going to a gym called Family Fitness, and at that time, actually no, it was called Champions. And at that time, it was the first large gym because the two guys that started it was actually a guy named Mike Watson and Gene Kay. Mike Watson was a competitive bodybuilder. He was Mr. Canada. His son's actually an IFBB pro, Zane. He's my good friend. I grew up with Zane. He's a 212 Canadian champ. He was at the Olympia 1 or 2 years. So they actually started the large gym craze, I guess you could say, in Canada. And that's, everybody started getting into the workouts. They're wearing the big cool pants with all the colors on them and the stringers. And that's where that all started.
90s.
I kind of wish I was around during that stuff. I mean, working out. But I would always go, my father.
How old are you? Sorry.
At that time?
Yeah. Getting into it.
As soon as my father would literally, as a baby, bring me to the gym and slap me on the counter, and I'd be sitting there eating a snack, and the girl behind the counter would be watching me.
Right on.
Yeah, he'd be working out there, and that was just common back in those days before all these silly laws with kids and stuff like that. And you can't do that stuff now, right? But yeah, and my father didn't really raise me like that, but he was always into the gym. He was always very militant. He wasn't in the military, but he was militant about working out and healthy and things like that. And I distinctly remember being about 10 years old, and I was starting to get chubby at this point. Like I was a little bit bigger than my brother. My brother Albert's 3 years older than me. He's a tall, skinny guy, a couple inches taller than me, skinny. He was like a little bit sick as a baby. Maybe that had something to do with it. Probably did, where he's just a thinner constitution. And I was a little bit, we were eating the same foods, but I was gaining weight. So I was always curious, like, well, I don't get it. Like, I'm kind of chubby and he's skinny. Like, what's going on?
What's happening?
I just ate the bag of chips. He ate the bag of chips. What's going on with me? And I remember one time I was outside playing basketball with a couple of kids in the neighborhood. It's summertime, and I come inside and, I grab this tub of ice cream and I throw it in the blender and throw a whole row of.
This guy's onto some serious stuff here.
I mean, we might do this after. A whole row of Rainbow Chips Ahoy, and I threw it in there and, dump the milk in, and I blend it up and nail it and go back out and play basketball. Obviously, I didn't know what I was doing then, right? 10 years old.
Did that end in some pukies?
Well,
No?
probably, yeah.
Oh,
but
gosh.
the point is, obviously I wasn't eating very good. And my parents, my mother and stepfather at the time were working, 14, 15, 16 hours a day. Here's $20 for pizza, whatever. So I was eating like pizza.
So your dad's militant about the gym, but he's letting you eat whatever you want.
Well, no, my dad's not, because he didn't raise us, because my mom and dad, it's my
they split.
stepdad and mom. Yeah. So they split when I was very, very young. And so my stepfather and mother were always working, and Here's this, here's that. Food was always in the fridge, but it was just not very good, And there wasn't a ton of information back then, although I still give my mom crap for it. Like, you knew that Chips Ahoy aren't good. Like, come on, So I grew up eating that stuff, and, of course I had gained some weight. Well, I remember, my father got to see us every 2 weeks, and one of his friend's son, Marco, I ended up being friends with Marco in high school, and they're a Serbian family, and this kid, so here I am, right, chubby 10-year-old or 12 or whatever, however old I was at this point, eating ice cream and Oreos and Chips Ahoy and all this crap, and this kid's eating whole wheat toast with garlic smashed on it, no joke, right, full fat butter, everything, right, playing hockey, and my father said to me, you're gonna wrestle Marco, and I thought I was pretty tough, right, at the time. I'm like, yeah, I'll wrestle Marco, So he goes, go on the grass right now. You're going to wrestle Marco. So I remember wrestling Marco, and he destroyed me. It wasn't even close. And he wasn't even a wrestler. He was just healthy, fit, played hockey, had capacity. I remember gassing in like 10 seconds. He dumped me on my head on the grass, and I was super embarrassed. And from then on, I thought, okay, I can't allow this to happen. Or, like as a boy, your testosterone's starting to stir. I thought, no, this can't happen.
You got conquered, man.
I got conquered.
Yeah.
It was like, what was it? Poland in World War II, 14 hours
Smashed.
or something. Like this is like 14 seconds. Okay. And I got absolutely smashed. And I thought, okay, I don't like this. I guess it somewhere inside of me, I had this sort of alpha. I was like, I got beat up, but I don't like this. So I said to my mom, I don't think she knew about this because, my father took us across the street and stuff like that. And then I said to my mom, I go, Mom, I don't really like that I'm chubby. Oh, Mike, you're not chubby, whatever. I said, Mom, I'm chubby, okay? I don't want to be chubby. I'm going to go to high school soon. I don't like this. So I said, can I hire a trainer? And she had worked at the gym in sales. My father had gone to the gym the whole life, so it wasn't, an odd thing. And she said, okay, yeah, well, let's hire a trainer. So literally at 13 going on 14 at this time, it took a little while.
Same time as Shannon.
Yeah. So I hired a trainer. His name's Sean Everingham. He's actually a really good guy. I'm still in contact with him a little bit. He puts on bodybuilding shows. I think it's called UFE, something like that. Anyway, he owns the organization, and he's been around that. So when I picked my trainer, though, I said, well, which one of the trainers here were fat? Because you guys aren't going to know what it's like. And we'll get to that at some point in this podcast where, an 18-year-old kid eats McDonald's 5 times a week and has abs and becomes a trainer because he likes to work out.
Genetics, people.
Yeah. One, you're 18.
Genetics.
2,
Well,
right?
Align yourself with someone that's similar to you, that has a similar body style, a similar history, that you are in line with. Don't just pick out someone that looks amazing.
God, it's a
or
big
gets
issue.
totally shredded, or there's an ectomorph when you're an endomorph. Like,
You just said it.
There's some specific body styles you should be paying attention to.
Oftentimes where people have hormonal issues and things like that, the last person to look at and to take advice from is the freaks. We'll get to that. There's a story behind that. Anyhow, so I hired this trainer, and he got me kicked off in my journey. Started working out with him. He gave me a pretty good education, and from there I got obsessed. Now I'd worked out here and there, like lifting little dumbbell sets and stuff like that as a kid, but I was never really into sports, anything like that. I liked the idea of it, but I didn't like team sports. I tried jiu-jitsu, got into jiu-jitsu, but was never really consistent with it. Like boxing, was into the MMA sort of thing. This is 20 years ago, so it's still sort of new and undeveloped. But I always stuck with it. I literally, like Shannon, never stopped working out unless I was injured. So I just kept doing that. But what I realized is there are different types of people, like you were saying. There's the ecto, the endo, the meso, and that's just a basic soma type, right? A soma type is explaining 3 different kind of types. And then there's shapes of people, pear shape and things like that, and the thyroid body. And anyway, and I started to realize that, well, something else is going on. It can't just be, eating healthy and working hard. For me anyway, it just didn't really seem to work like it did for other people. And oftentimes I would give people advice, from things that I learned, and it would work for them, but not for me. And I'm going, I don't understand this. Like, I'm a hard worker. I'm not lazy. I don't quite get it. So throughout my journey, I just kind of realized, okay, I'm different. But that actually propelled me to learn. So when I was 17,
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, I got obsessed with it because I said, this doesn't make sense. I mean, I was always, by the way, I put on strength very fast. So I was always very strong. But when you're a little bit higher percentage of body fat, that kind of comes with the territory anyway. Yeah. So I don't think I was like exponentially stronger naturally. I think it's because my body fat was higher. I was getting a little bit bigger as you're gaining weight. Some of that is muscle, that sort of thing. So I went down the rabbit hole of, well, if I'm a trainer, I really want to help people that really need the help, like someone that wants bigger arms. I mean, just keep working out, man. Like you're going to get bigger arms. But a lot of people who hire personal trainers, especially young trainers, are actually women, and they're over 40. So there's a certain demographic. So I said, well, how do I help these people? You know, I'm all jacked up. I don't know how to deal with me. So I started going down the health aspect as well as the performance aspect. And part of the time where I was a personal trainer, I was training under a guy named Steve Badanis. He owned Sports Specific Training Canada. Shout out to Steve if you're listening. Steve was one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in Canada. I'm not just saying that because he trained me. He would actually get involved with the NFL combines. Like, he was like phenomenal. And the reason he was so good is because he trained under a guy named Charles Poliquin. If you don't
Charles is amazing.
Yeah,
He's
he
probably
is.
one of my favorite guys out there.
So if you don't know who Charles Poliquin is, somewhere in the show notes, write the full name and Strength Sensei and get to there. Because if you don't know and you're a guy who works out or a woman who works out, you need to know who Charles Poliquin was. He's now passed.
He has one of the most winningest Olympic records, and not only through powerlifting, but all types of disciplines, Olympics. He has more number ones than anybody else.
As a coach, not
As a
him
coach.
himself.
Well,
Yeah,
of course,
he's
as
the
a
most
coach,
winningest
obviously.
coach.
Yes, correct.
And the most diverse amount of sports too. I think it's 16 to 20 different sports. He has, like, I think it's
Just
a total.
think about that.
Yeah, he's a beast.
No,
It's
well,
insane.
it's because he understood the principles, which
That's right.
we'll get to. So I thought, okay, well, if Steve is one of the best coaches in Canada, he's absolutely phenomenal. You know, he was helping pro fighters at the time in Canada and all this stuff. And, you know, I was into the MMA scene. So I was kind of training like a hybrid, almost like you were, with like strength football workouts, but then mixing in some boxing stuff. Because at the time they didn't really have an MMA style workout mastered, the conditioning aspects and the adaptations. So started to do that. And I said, okay, so if Charles Poliquin is the one who taught Steve, I need to learn from Charles Poliquin. Well, I don't really have the money. You know, I'm a personal trainer. I'm not making much, but one day I'm going to get there. So I always set that goal. So I studied his work extensively. I'm going to learn Charles inside and out, his strength methods, what he says about supplements, what he says about nutrition. And then I finally got the chance when Charles showed up in Toronto, which is about an hour away from where I was living at the time. And I thought, I got to do this. Now, mind you, the Canadian dollar at the time was 30 cents on the dollar, so 30% more. So if it was $100, $130 to me. I think that course was $5,000 US. So it's like $6,300, something like that. You know, his courses weren't cheap, which actually negated a lot of people from doing the courses. What's an average personal trainer course now? $350, $500, right?
They're
Something like
garbage.
that.
Yeah.
And they're garbage. Not to be rude. No offense to any trainers out there. You got to step your game up because you're
Not
Well,
being
I-
rude.
real
It's just
quick,
being
real quick,
honest. Guys. If you go out there to a gym and you're going to for a personal trainer, this is what you're going to be dealing with. The gamut is there's a lot of guys that took the $350 whatever course and they really don't know what they're doing.
A lot of that.
So just because someone is certified doesn't mean they know what they're doing.
Doesn't
I
mean
just
they're
wanna
qualified.
Put that out there.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean
certified
they're
does not
qualified.
mean qualified.
Correct. There's a
Especially
lot of the
these days,
IFBB
yeah.
pros are trained by people that don't even have a cert. So
Well,
that
and
tells
a
you
lot of
something.
the IFBB pros, they're not the coach. So when they come out with programs, it's a way to monetize some of what they've learned, but a lot of it is basic at best. And that's not,
What I said is a lot of IB pros are trained by people that don't have a cert.
yes, yep. Yeah.
Some
and
of the best guys out there don't have certs.
that's true as well.
They're just,
Yeah.
It's information.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. So when I got a chance to do Charles' course, the first course that I did, that was actually with a guy named Dmitry Klokov, who is a silver medalist in Olympic lifting, a Russian guy, obviously, Dmitry Klokov. And that guy's an absolute freak. I mean, I had the opportunity to see him lift 92% of his 1 rep max, like all time, like winning 1 rep max in person just on a whim.
He did that repeatedly with Charles. Like he would do
All the
this.
time.
He'd fly into France in a day and just do it.
Yeah.
Like he's a freak. The
Right.
dude's a freak.
And quick story on Dimitri, and this is why you don't listen to freaks. This is actually Charles' advice to me in person on why you do not take advice from freaks. So if you're listening to this and you have a Chris Bumstead, your favorite guy, no offense to Chris Bumstead, phenomenal physique. I think he's got one of the best physiques, amazing. But Chris Bumstead didn't get Chris Bumstead there. He did what he was told. Find out who told him what, and be honest with yourself. Do you have Chris Bumstead physique? Probably not.
Right.
Do you have his genetics? Do you have his propensities, his potential? Probably not. So Charles said, Dimitri, tell the story of, you know, when they were at some CrossFit box in Iowa or some small town or something like that, and Dimitri's flying overseas. So he flies overseas. He said, what did you eat? And Dimitri says in his Russian accent, he goes, large pizza. And he goes, and what did you drink? He goes, three bottle of white wine. And he's dead serious. And he goes, and what else? He goes, 2 bags Skittles. And how much did you sleep?
3 hours.
3 hours. Snatches 92% of his 1 rep max after doing that.
Yeah, guys,
3
it's
bottles of white
genetic
wine.
outlier.
Yeah.
Freak.
That's a
Yeah.
freak. And Charles
Yeah.
goes, don't listen to Dimitri when it comes to diet, nutrition, nothing.
Sounds like
You
George
want to
St.
go for the
Pierre.
hard gainers. You know
Right.
what I
He
mean? The
said you
people that-
listen to
yes.
Dimitri on your form for Olympic lifting, which is what you're here for. And Charles was a hard ass. So he goes, enough of that. Let's go. Let's get under the bar. By the way, one of the worst Olympic weightlifting experiences I've ever had in my life, because I have pictures. Maybe we'll share it in the podcast after. Absolutely terrible. I mean, he would make you hold a front rack position for 10, 12 minutes.
Ugh.
So
Whoa.
it was horrible. However,
That'll make
I
you
realized
remember.
I'm not in good shape. Like, these guys are in phenomenal shape. Anyway, so that was that experience. I was in Toronto, and then I got even more obsessed. I wanted to do more courses and things
How
like
long
that.
was the course?
Course was 3 days. So
Okay.
3 days for about $6,500.
Wow.
Did you take notes? I hope you did.
Yeah. So the one thing about Charles' courses is when you were training, I said he's not going to be around forever. There's going to be a time period, I'd look back on, I had Arnold's books and things like that when I was younger. So there's a time period, and I'm in the era of learning from Charles Poliquin. So I'm going to do it no matter what it costs, no matter what it takes. And that's actually going to set me apart from other trainers. Right.
That's
So
great.
I said, okay, perfect. Did a lot of courses with Charles. One of them was in Marbella, Spain. Am I pronouncing that right? Marbella.
I have no
Marbella.
idea.
Spelled Marbella. But anyway, Marbella, Spain. And Charles was one of the guys that got into such advanced concepts that would come true 10, 15, 20 years after he said it.
He's a clinician.
Yeah, and most people would laugh. They said, you can't take that much fish oil. He would tell people to take, if you're 30% body fat, for the first month, you double it. So let's say you're 30%, you take 60 grams
Yep.
of fish oil, get your inflammation down, and then match your body fat percentage until you're around 15%, and then you can go to about 10 grams. People laughed him. They said, you're crazy, doctors, everything. Sure enough, McGill University in Toronto, I believe it was, in Canada, does a study about 7 years ago confirming that. He said that like 25 years ago. So
That's the way it works. And a lot of the best scientists were they were philosophers back in the day. Rene Descartes, all these guys, they used both. So in order to be on the periphery like a clinician, you have to be a philosopher. You have to be someone who's willing to think outside the box. You might know why something works, like Charles did. He doesn't know exactly why it works, and then science comes up 20 years later and says, this is why this works.
yeah, fast story on that, actually. I remember I was working at a local gym, and, to prove your point here, there was a guy that graduated top of his class, kinesiology, whatever, blah, blah. I think it was like a 6-year degree. And I'm hearing all about this guy that's coming into the gym. And here I am, like, high school dropout. I'm doing personal trainer courses. This is before I did courses with Charles, but I had studied his work. And this guy comes in after I heard everything about him, right? He's the smartest guy, top of his class, the whole thing. And the guy shows up and he's 120 pounds, soaking wet, never lifted a weight in his life. He looked pretty nerdy. So I thought they made a mistake. And I said, this is the new trainer? Oh, yeah, no, he's actually going to be the head of trainers. I said, what? Him. Yeah, he graduated. I go, no, I've heard the story that he graduated top of his class. Was there any practical? Like, was there any, doing?
Empirical.
Yeah. Did they test what they were learning? Clearly not. So I remember this guy's talking up a big game and all this stuff. And I remember when he had his first client, the moment of panic. It was time to teach a woman how to do a lat pull down. And he knows the insertion, the origin. He knows the function of the lat. He knows where it's in a detrimental position, with the humerus overhead. He knows all that. But he can't do one because he's never done one. And we all know that you can know something. Like, how many times have we watched Kung Fu? Right? How many movies have you watched? Karate. Why aren't you a karate master then? Why don't you just watch the movie over and over again? You could even understand the science behind the movement, right? But what happens?
Well, both are important. You have to, if you can reconcile the science with the actual doing, the empirical knowledge, and understanding how to communicate that to a person, then you're really doing the job of a personal trainer.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of the people, especially when it comes to the musculature of the body, they don't especially your back. So you can't see your back. And visual people, if you have a really good trainer, they'll tap, they'll touch. They know how to cue you up and turn you on and get you to visualize and actually use your body, connect with your body.
Right.
Yeah, like
and so, like,
Mikkel.
some of these guys, they're wealths of knowledge. Take, for instance, music. You'll have these guys who are incredibly well educated. They know all the music theory inside and out. They can hear a piece of music and dictate to you what's actually being done. Then you sit them down and say, I want you to write a song. You have to have the heart. You have to have somebody who's got something in their head and heart that they're putting down onto a song. They can't do it. This happens a lot of the time. And so I see that little gap a lot where somebody, and it's funny to me, I always ask myself, why would a guy like that, and I don't understand, maybe he was fascinated with the human body, but how could you go to 6 years of school and not go to the gym?
Well, think of it at this
like
point.
that
So
to
he's
me,
6 years.
that to me is pretty nuts.
That's
Well,
pretty
he's 6
wild.
years into
Weird.
his education and graduated top of his class, whatever. And I'm at this point 6 years into actually lifting weights. So the difference was uncanny because he couldn't do it because the woman said, well, just show me.
Experience trumps
Yeah.
knowledge.
Well, just think
Yeah,
of
well-
universities. Like most university professors, they'll be sitting teaching finance class. Have never worked a day in finance in their life.
Right.
They
And
know
don't
all
own
the theory,
businesses.
all
They
the
say those who can't teach.
exactly.
The
Right.
real pros are the ones
Those
who
who
do
can't
that,
do teach.
who have the science, who have the firsthand knowledge. I think going to like you had a great idea by seeking out and just like Shannon did, being open to these resources, but also being very selective with the resources.
Mm.
Saying like this guy Charles Poliquin, not only is he an outlier, but he's actually conducting his own clinical trials. Albeit they're small, they're not double-blind placebo, fine. But he knows what works because he's actually seen people change. He's worked with such a diverse demographic of people, and you sought him out. You saw that man has this earned knowledge, and you found him. You spent the money. You're clearly looking for a career in fitness, not just no one spends that kind of money without thinking, what am I going to do with this?
Right. Well, that's the difference between somebody who actually can produce results with a wide range of people, wide range of sports, wide range of goals, male and female, old and young, and somebody who's a trainer that works at a local gym. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all start out that way. But I think people should be really honest with themselves where they want to go. For some people, that's just the job. Somebody asked me one time, I was doing an entrepreneur event, and they asked me what my superpower was. It's kind of one of those quirky questions that you asked. And I hate that question because you're like, superpower? Well, I'm not a superhero.
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus, exactly, right? But I didn't know how to answer that until I thought, well, what's one thing that I'm really good at? And I thought, I'm really good at finding the best people in their regarded area or discipline, finding them and learning from them. And that's what I've done my whole life with everything, whether it was martial arts, like I went to Brazil for jiu-jitsu, went to Thailand for Muay Thai, Charles Poliquin for strength and conditioning, Stan Efforting for nutrition. You find the best people and you go there, right? You can't be afraid of doing that. But if you do that, that will set you apart from other people, regardless of the way you look, regardless of the way that you perform. But as a coach, you can actually get a result with a wide range of people because you've done the work. So you actually have to do it.
So you love to research, obviously.
Yeah.
You love to research. You like to spend a lot of time getting down to the nitty-gritty of whatever it is. You're obsessive.
I would say yes, but I've learned to not be so obsessive because there is a point of diminishing return,
That's
just
tunnel
like
vision.
in lifting,
It's tunnel vision.
just like in business, just like in anything that we love as men. We get obsessed with things. And I learned there's an unhealthy obsession with me, and I've developed the ability to turn it off a little bit. I don't need to know the amino acid structure of a protein. Like, you just don't. Like, who cares? How is that helping anybody, right? So there's a point where I said, okay, I know enough about this subject to be dangerous in a good way, to help somebody out with their goal, but I don't need to be a biochemist.
And so going back to, I think you were hinting at discovering an underlying issue that you had that wasn't being addressed in the gym. You're doing these workouts, you're seeing your friends do the same workouts, you're suggesting they're getting different results. And so you begin to think, what's going on here? Is there an underlying issue that I'm not privy to? And so what did that lead you?
Yeah.
How'd
so,
that go?
It started to bug me because actually Zane Watson comes up to me in the gym and he's competing for a show at that time. I think he was a national competitor, not an international competitor. He was still on the Canadian stage. He might have been Mr. Canada by then. He comes up to me and says, and he's kind of funny, and he's like, he throws those digs in there, and we have the type of respect where you could do that. But he says, "You're the hardest working guy I know, but you look like shit." And he was totally flat out. And he's right. And I never looked good. And he goes,
It's not your mom sitting there saying, "You're not chubby, buddy.
Right.
You
Yeah.
look great."
and he was right. He goes,
have another bowl of Cheerios. Yeah,
yeah.
a real
And he
friend tells
said,
you the truth.
"You're exactly right." And I
Yeah.
thanked him. I was never like, that didn't hurt my feelings. I said, "Yeah, you're right. I don't look good, And he goes, I don't know what it is. You just were dealt a crappy hand. He's right.
Genetics.
Well, yeah,
He's basically saying-
and habits. I was eating the Oreos and the rainbow. So as a young kid, I kind of ruined that very critical age of 10 to 13. That's like your hormonal growth stage. That really did
Kind of set the deck during that time.
Yeah, I don't think I had bad genetics. I honestly think that maybe I would have been a hyper responder, but I really did a lot of damage. So for parents who are listening, your kids, if you're starting to see that they're chubby and things like this, listen, you have to make sure that those kids are eating healthy, getting enough micronutrients, eating real food, staying away from the processed stuff, because the damage you're doing, I'm telling you, because I'm still dealing with a lot of those issues that I caused from 10 to 13. And when I say I mean, I'm feeding myself. My mother's not feeding me, but she is buying the food, and my stepfather and her were buying the food.
Well, you have to think, I mean, when you look at the influence that the sugar industry has and the pharmaceutical industry has on the FDA, and how, they approve certain things that really aren't good for you. And you look at the structure of the, food pyramid, and, sugar is the basis of all. That's a bunch of crap. And my mom didn't know, we had a Chips Ahoy in our, cabinet, and graham crackers and all.
And back
kinds
then,
of
that's
junk.
when trans fat was in there too. So you had this.
I used to come home from school and, eat half a sleeve of Chips Ahoy cookies.
A lot of
every
people-
day,
You know,
and-
that
and-
was
and a
the-
bag of Doritos. And
That was
just-
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that was the American diet, and so much of the marketing went behind Chips Ahoy, behind Doritos, behind Pepsi, behind all these horse shit foods was for kids.
I
it
don't
was all
fault-
marketed to kids.
Well, the parents
it
want the
wasn't-
kid to shut up,
and
right?
we pressured.
Well, I mean, we
pressured
know
our
like
parents.
there was a big agenda there to poison the kids.
course.
pretty
Sperm
much.
counts have been
Well, the
on
kids
Get rid
of
of
the future.
testosterone to make a bunch of girls.
Well, the
Sperm
kids of the
counts
future, right? So when you start implementing,
Sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Oh,
when
yeah.
you start implementing
Tell
some
you
of the
what,
things,
guys.
and you want people to be more docile and you want them to be more agreeable, well, when you have less testosterone, you butt heads less, literally and figuratively. That kind of sounds like what we've got going on right now.
Well,
We
it's-
got a lot
what
of
is it, half of what it was 20 years ago on average?
Yeah,
Something
At
good
least
luck
half.
feeding your kid steaks and lentils and rice when his friends are going out and eating Chips Ahoy. He's gonna come home and be like, "What are you
Well,
doing?"
no. He's
in-
going to
in
slam you on your head on your neighbor's
He's
grass.
upset.
That's right.
And
That's
that's-
right.
that's what's gonna happen.
In,
Yeah.
in my mom's defense, though, like, she did feed us as well, so I did get
And
a
she
lot
loved
of
you.
crap.
She did love you.
Oh, more than
Maybe
I
a little
deserve,
too much,
probably.
right? Sometimes moms can love you too much.
But I mean, my mom cooked for us every
That's good.
night.
Yeah.
And we had well balanced meals.
Yeah.
So I did eat a lot of crap, but I also ate a lot of good food.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was a little pudgy too when I was in that stage.
And when you're growing up, like, there's a certain point where it's not so bad. Like, I'm not saying you have to have a ripped 8-pack and be show ready. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's just a lot of foods, and I think a lot of people know now, like seed oils. Like, let's just go over what we're talking about, because people are listening. They're like, do they mean?
you got me reading everything now?
Yeah,
I
well,
went through. I was like, oh, we can't.
it's
have that
because it's
anymore.
in
Can't have
everything.
that
Soybean
anymore.
oil.
Good.
So let's
Hey.
talk about this, because what are the big offenders of health? So people
These
are listening.
Industrial seed oils, correct? Isn't that what they call them?
Yeah. So
Rapeseed,
so people
soybean
are.
oil.
vegetable oils,
I don't think flaxseed's one of them.
I didn't
Is
say
it?
that. I said
Yeah.
it's
rapeseed.
rap.
Oh.
It's
Yeah, rape.
basically
Rape,
cotton
rap,
seeds.
Yeah.
However you want to
Okay.
say it.
They used to use
Okay.
it
Rape
to.
seeds.
Cool
Rapeseeds,
engines.
That's
Yeah.
what they do to your body.
Let's let Mike explain.
Yeah. So what people don't really understand is there was a massive shift, like around wartime, especially. There was a massive shift with. They had a lot of grains left over, and this is where cereals became popular and things like that. And
Crisco.
yeah, and actually, a guy named Ansel Keys is responsible for basically propagating. He was paid by General Mills at the time $10,000. This is all factual. You can read it in any keto book, anything like that. And it was propagated to, we have all these silos of grains and this massive amount of grains across America. What are we going to do? So, they changed, and this, we actually spoke about this on the last podcast, talking about the restructuring of the education system. So think that was that time heading into the 60s. This is where everything started to go downhill, and you started to get processed food, massive manufacturing. Coca-Cola was running rampant. It was extremely easily accessible post-war.
There was a lot of excess too. I mean, the country had a lot of wealth after the war.
Right. People were spending. It was at a time where economics made sense, where when you worked X hours, you could buy a house, have a car, 2 cars, have a vacation home, a cabin, like, a boat, a motorcycle. You could have all of these things when you worked a regular job. Now you could work 300 years with a regular job and you'll never have that. Both parents. So economically, they were pushing foods that, and some people will say, well, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. They knew what they were doing because they did a lot of
now
tests.
It's not a conspiracy.
Right.
Now it's all been validated.
Right.
So they like the idea of TV dinners. They like the idea
was
of
convenient.
shelf-stable foods. It was
Right.
actually like middle class, upper middle
Well,
class.
this
like,
is the-
check out my TV dinner.
Well, this
bro.
is the time
Check out
after
my
Sputnik.
you know,
Remember when we
Yeah,
said Sputnik?
That's what was going on.
So this was the space
You're
race.
eating space food. How cool are you?
Well, yeah, and
You know?
and so culturally, we don't maybe understand that, but at the time, people had bomb shelters. A lot of people had bomb shelters and bunkers in their backyard. So they were thinking, we need food and ingenuity going around. Food makes sense.
fallout.
How do we make this last long? Right.
And so to narrow this down in light of time, because I want to hear the full
Yes.
story here. Let's do a quick breakdown of some of the foods. This research has been substantiated. There's absolutely no question what these things do. Mike is trying to make a point to the parents out there who are serving their kids this stuff because their organs and their bodies are actually taking shape. And so there's some things you can't rewind. There's some things you cannot undo. So this is like, there's a lot you can do to fix it, but you're talking permanent damage.
You can't
okay?
get a reset on your growth.
There's no
plates.
insurance on
It's
this.
not going to happen.
So one of the top things for people, rapeseed oil.
Yeah. So let's go
Okay,
into the things to
canola.
avoid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
So
a quick breakdown.
Here's
of
the
that.
avoid. So any synthetic oils, vegetable oils, anything like that, discluding coconut oil, discluding
Avocado.
olive oil, avocado oil. We're talking rapeseed, however you say that, soy, those sort of things.
Canola.
Vegetable, canola. If those are safflower, whatever.
Corn.
If corn oil, peanut oil, if those are in your foods, which they are, if like a steak has what? What's the ingredient? Beef.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's a good food to eat. Potato, good food to eat. We'll get to that in a second. So
what are some
avoid
good fats? Since
Good-
we're talking fats.
good, honestly, and
Replacement.
super controversial butter.
I love butter.
Tallow. Tallow's
Tallow.
great. Lard.
Lard.
Non-hydrogenated
Yes.
versions of these things. You do not want
Ghee.
to get
Guys.
tallow that's hydrogenated because you
Yes.
can get this stuff, but it can still be corrupted.
Right.
So you don't want the hydrogenated oils. These animal fats in their natural form are the best thing. We've been metabolizing this, eating this for thousands of years.
Yes, sir.
It's the
Butter,
processed stuff that's
lard.
killing us.
tallow, non-hydrogenated.
Your body knows
Ghee, right?
exactly
As
what
well?
to do
Well,
with
that's
it.
butter.
Yeah,
That's
ghee is
butter.
clarified,
Clarified
butter.
butter.
Well,
Yeah, same
the,
thing.
The guy, the entity that created it, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they want to. They
It's
want
almost
get
like
you,
God knew what he was
It's
doing
almost
when
like
he
he knew
made
what
it.
he
It's almost like you knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But like, if you guys are cooking bacon, save the grease. Have a little bacon
Yeah.
thing at
Yeah.
the side of your
Now,
what you're cooking with.
There's a point of if someone's listening and they're
Excess.
trying to lose weight, like obviously don't smother your stuff in bacon grease, your potatoes, and think you're going to lose weight because we'll get to that
Unless you're
after.
That's a
keto.
separate dietary
Yeah,
issue.
fundamentally,
for
calories
sure.
in, calories out. Fundamentally,
Yeah.
And
makes
then
sense.
So fats, those are some great guidelines for fats. And then what we got? Processed sugars.
Yeah, so
And-
processed sugar. I mean, look, I'm drinking a Fit Aid here. What does this have here? I can't see carbohydrates 4 grams versus a can of Coca-Cola that has
Like 30 grams.
36 or
Yeah,
something like that.
36.
People don't realize, but they drink their calories. They drink their sugar, right? There's processed sugar in even fast food. Like if you go and you get a McDonald's burger, which from time to time we're going to eat a McDonald's burger or a Five Guys, whatever.
Love it.
But if you look at
It's been 6
a
years.
burger,
Wow.
right, and you do a double cheeseburger, for example, and you look at the calories in that, how is it that if you made it at home and weighed it and did the whole thing, it's literally at least 30% less calories? Something's
Sugar.
going on there.
Yeah.
Sugar, extra fat. Where's the fat? Most people don't realize they actually use below 70-30. They're
Yeah.
using like 65-35 meat.
Oh, they're so tasty.
So again, it's
Yeah.
beef. Maybe it's not the best beef, but then calorically, if you're over your calories, you're not going to lose weight. So anyway, that we'll get there.
Going out to eat's always a gamble.
Yeah, there's
you know?
more
You're not gonna
calories
be
in the
doing great.
exact same meal that you could make at home if you just took the time and bought quality ingredients than if you went and paid for the convenience of having it.
So the different forms of sugar, right? You have fructose,
Glucose.
glucose, sucrose, dextrose. And then you
It's all
have the
carbons.
horrible
Dextrose, yeah.
form that the body doesn't even recognize as sugar, so it stores it all, and that is what's in everything, high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, so molecularly, your body literally doesn't know what to do.
That's right.
To keep this in layman's terms for people listening, you're either insulin sensitive, which actually is a good thing, or insulin resistant. I would be insulin resistant. You carry more body fat. You have a higher propensity to put on body fat. Mike, you used to be insulin resistant. Now you've made yourself insulin sensitive. So when you eat a pizza on the weekend, it's actually beneficial to you versus me, does nothing good. And we're not talking about the ingredients. We're talking about specifically the macronutrients and the calories. So if people are listening, the insulin sensitivity is a big thing for your overall health because insulin is also the hormone of aging. So anytime you eat, doesn't matter if it's protein, carbohydrates, or fat, you do have an insulin response from that food. And how well you deal with that insulin and how much food and the quality of that food will dictate that insulin response. So
this is why this is why you took me from 6 meals to 4.
Exactly. So Shannon, like a lot of people who do a typical bodybuilding split, not that that's the worst thing. It's better than 3 terrible meals a day, McDonald's for breakfast, or whatever. But also with your age, as you're getting older, you don't want to stimulate insulin and mTOR, which is protein synthesis, so much because it actually ages you. So that's a whole other thing.
mTOR is aging. Any type of surplus, any type of anabolic thing is going to age.
Yes.
Any kind.
Yeah. So
which is getting really nerdy. But so the sugars, the oils, these things are what make your food taste good.
Yeah.
If you're looking at your salad dressings, you see a
man.
bunch of soybean
Sure,
oil
the
in there.
worst.
You're looking at your mayonnaise, bunch of soybean oil in there. Try and cut some of these things out, replace them, find better oils to take their place. And if your kids are up, in your grill trying to, throw temper tantrums over food, just realize they're coming off of drugs. They're actually coming off
that's a
of
good point.
sugar. So they're going to have to go through a period of time where they're
Withdrawal.
sort of forced
Yeah,
into the room
withdrawal.
with a light bulb,
Temper
and you're
tantrums.
sitting there with your kids as they tough it out.
And
Yep.
to that point, there is an exponentially incredible amount of good quality ingredients. You just mentioned mayonnaise. Use products like Primal Kitchen. Use their salad dressings. They never use canola, soy. They use avocado oil. They use egg yolks are, phenomenal source of fat as well. They also have we should leave. We'll leave in the links.
Or make
there.
your own too. They're so
Apple
easy
cider
to make 'em.
vinegar.
Oh my gosh, you can
Mayonnaise
make them so
is
easy.
to make.
Yeah,
My
and
God,
mayonnaise
all
is easy
this.
to make.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. And
So there are.
Sorry, you had mentioned high insulin, low insulin, or resistance, and I wanted to point out that even if you are very insulin resistant, someone like Mike, for instance, doesn't mean you can go out and just start
Insulin
railing. Yeah, insulin sensitive doesn't mean you can start railing high fructose corn syrup. Your body can only metabolize a certain amount of polysaccharides. So there's sugars, there's 2 molecules. Some of them are monosaccharides, polysaccharides. Your body has a finite amount of these enzymes that basically chop those sugars in half.
It's carbon.
And that's where it goes to the liver. Okay, so just to let you guys know, if you are insulin sensitive, it's not a get out of jail free card to go out and just consume as much.
And you usually have to
high fructose
work for
corn
that
syrup.
sensitivity too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was drinking
Doesn't matter
5
who you
cans
are.
of Pepsi a day, consuming like 200 grams of high fructose corn
Wow.
syrup. I was not doing well.
Well,
Yeah.
and
it
the
was 5 years of
metabolic
keto
damage,
diet.
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
5 years
Yeah.
to undo what
Yes.
you did, and the metabolic damage
It's
is
therapy
the
for his
real.
pancreas.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
metabolic damage
Yep.
is huge because you're actually having an epigenetic effect, and what that means is you're literally changing someone's genetic makeup and how they respond. Remember, if this doesn't freak you out, I don't know what will. We have to take ownership here. We're big on extreme ownership. Your kids are half you and half your wife. So if it's a man listening, obviously it's half your wife. So whatever genetic code you give them, and remember, we just said that certain foods can turn on good genes and turn on bad genes and turn off good genes and so on and so forth. Your kids are getting half of that. So if you and your wife are eating like crap and you're bringing someone into this world, and we know everything tends toward disorder, right?
And to
Second law.
understand, you're altering their genome.
Yeah.
Whatever
Literally
she's eating
for the
while
worse.
she's
Yeah.
pregnant, that's what she's.
And we
gonna
wonder
create.
why
Yeah.
people get sick so often and things like that. And people are using Purell and constantly sanitizing,
They're
constantly need things
sabotaging their systems.
They're
100%.
Yeah.
And-
They're
and-
killing off their
microbiome.
Well,
Yeah.
their natural
Their
flora.
their
Natural
It works
flora.
symbiotically
Yeah.
with your.
And what we know about that
That's
now,
right.
it's profound. What they know about the gut microbiome, it's almost like DNA. They're never going to know even 5% of it. But what we do know is profound. And guess what? Eating whole foods actually, is good for you.
Yeah,
I
and
didn't imagine
anything,
that.
and to
That's right.
underscore what Mike is saying, anything you're putting into your body is going to affect and impact your DNA.
Yeah.
It changes it. And then your thoughts, all these things. That's why going to the gym creates a disciplined mindset that impacts your central nervous system. that's why we don't get sick as much. You're actually reinforcing your body's response.
And when
Now,
we
I
do,
want to
we
turn this.
get over it quicker.
That's right.
Right. And
I want to
bugs,
turn
these little bugs that are like there in your. They have the microbiome in your stomach. You also have a microbiome in your skin.
Yeah.
So like if
It's
you're
your
going
natural
off and you're
flora.
stripping that flora off your
They're
skin,
both skin.
this happens in agriculture as well. We know this with over fertilizing and the way they kill the microbiome.
Magnesium depletion in the soil.
They're bugs.
Living
It's
bugs.
a it's a biome. It's a
bacteria.
bunch of bacteria. It's a bunch of all kinds of stuff. And we know this from growing weed in California. Is like some of the best weed. They have these powerful microbiomes that are going on. It's not just like these
well, the plant
where
stomach is the soil.
Well,
right.
It's the same thing. It has a flora. There's
exactly.
bad microbes.
That's the way
that get
God
into
made
the
it.
soil.
He made it
biome.
that way for a reason.
Yeah.
you
So
know?
what these guys are saying is that you're got a garden. You have
It's a
soil in
garden.
your stomach. That
Yeah.
soil feeds
It's the
your
best
DNA.
analogy.
Yeah,
for it,
you
yeah.
have it in your stomach, and you're supposed to improve the gut flora, which are the bacteria inside of your stomach, to improve your endocrine system. Make sure that your recovery is better.
sure you're breaking
it's
down your
impacting your
foods.
DNA. You're breaking
Yeah.
down and
that
absorbing
means high
the foods.
fiber stuff. You know,
Yeah.
eating the skin of the sweet potato. You know,
But let's
doing
turn.
that stuff.
Let's turn. Yeah,
I want to
exactly.
finish the
I
bad
wanna-
foods.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
there's
then
two-
I want to get into. I want you to cap that story off.
Yeah. So I just want to finish the bad foods because for people this is going to be interesting. So you obviously have the seed oils. So we'll just say seed oils. We'll say the processed refined sugar. So that's in your Coca-Colas, in your cereals, things like that you're eating. Grains is a big one. One of the most harmful, offensive foods for most people. There's several reasons, epigenetic reasons, where you're from, historically, that sort of thing. But gluten is a big one. So people make fun of gluten. Oh, I'm eating gluten free. I'm eating this. If people just ate what I like to call, or what is categorized as autoimmune paleo, essentially you're eating whole foods and in a category of foods that aren't highly offensive, 95% of people would be so much better off. So
And when he says offensive, he's saying inflammatory, causing your body to have to work harder than it should.
right. And this is going to make sense when I say this, or at least spark somebody to go and do a little bit more research. So we have the grains. The other one, processed dairy. I think dairy's phenomenal, but
too.
when it's pasteurized, like we have, here in Florida, which is pretty darn good from the Amish community, we can actually get unpasteurized
Raw
dairy,
food.
which is awesome. Super good for your health. People have been drinking unpasteurized dairy for thousands of years. Awesome. But if it's processed, limit your amount of it. There's certain things like Tillamook cheddar is a good brand.
Yeah.
Having 1 or 2 ounces of that every single day is good for both men and women, children, old, young, whatever. That's good, but limit. Don't have a lot of dairy there. And then the last thing is actually certain vegetables, which blows people's mind when you say vegetables aren't healthy. Listen, people have autoimmune responses, and there's things called high FOD, F-O-D, MAP foods, and they cause major autoimmune, like turning on an autoimmune response. An autoimmune response is red light danger zone for your body. It actually causes your body to go into full attack mode on itself.
Yeah.
So this is something that people don't realize, like kale. Like, people go, oh, kale.
It's
Most people
disgusting.
shouldn't eat kale.
Well, unless
know.
you cook it. You can cook it and it changes.
You have
it.
to break it down, but there's still the oxalate.
Digest it.
Yeah, so you still have like from spinach and things like that. Even
Same
though
with a lot of the cruciferous vegetables. You have to cook. You should be cooking them.
right, so what's a typical bodybuilding diet? Chicken, rice, broccoli. Well, most people don't digest broccoli really well. What do most bodybuilders complain about? Bloating, right? A lot of them complain about bloating.
Sulforaphane is, or what's it called?
Sulforaphane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
in
the broccoli
cruciferous
problem, right?
vegetables, exactly. So they're sulfurous compounds, right? So that
Good
would be
for
the
liver, though, aren't they?
pardon.
Aren't they good for the liver?
They
though?
can be liver protective because they have antioxidant properties.
Dr.
However, you aren't what you eat; you're what you absorb.
Yeah.
So there's the other thing. We could get into a whole.
You
we
shouldn't
could-
be eating them raw. You
Right.
should be cooking them. That's
Right.
what a lot of these guys eat, these raw diets, and it's just we're not freaking cows and have 2 stomachs.
Well,
It's
we
just
can't
not
do
the
it.
way is.
We can't do it
Yeah.
anymore.
6
Arguably,
miles
there
Look
might-
at anything that's
cellulose.
that's a vegetarian in the wild. They got these giant stomachs because they're literally
and lots of them
They are literally
They're perma bloat, dude.
what is it called when you
churning.
Cud.
they're fermenting what they eat,
Right.
and that's how they're extracting the sugars out of it.
Right. Well, and grass. So grass,
What they're
they eat the green grass that gets the vitamin K1, and then it turns into butter, which gives you the vitamin K2, which gives, you the brown eyes and the blue eye. Like, that's how God designed nature. There's food that has micronutrients, which is actually when we get to what you should be eating, that's going to be the main point there. Should I just dive right into it?
Dive.
for it.
So we covered foods that you should avoid. That's a general rule of thumb. Obviously, we could give a huge list. When it comes to foods that you should be eating, first and foremost, foods that don't offend your gut. So that would be the low FODMAP foods. It's a whole list, very easy. If you guys are listening and you're interested, get the book, The Vertical Diet by Stan Efferding and Dr. Damon McCune. I had the pleasure of being certified through them. Went to New Mexico, learned a whole bunch. That's what you follow. That's pretty much what I follow. Most people that I coach follow.
Food.
That's right.
Highly satisfying, micronutrient-dense food. And just a little caveat before I get into the list. What is disease? We're not making any medical claims. Obviously, we're not here to treat or, I don't know what the medical disclaimer is, but disease is defined as a lack of nutrients over time manifesting into a problem. There was a time where people would carry limes after they figure this out on a ship because people were getting scurvy. And if you're listening right now, side note on your phone, type in what does somebody look like or a skeleton that has scurvy and rickets, okay? Their bones actually look like a roller coaster, like they're all deformed. That's from not having vitamin C. But we know our bodies need 21 vitamins at least, 60 minerals at least, and 3 oils at least every single day. And bioavailable forms of those. And if not, you get all of the disease that we have. Now it gets exacerbated by highly processed food and jacking up your insulin and all that stuff. But if you don't have the micronutrients, that's what disease is. It's the lack of nutrients. Okay. Foods you should eat, highly dense micronutrient foods. Right off the top, red meat.
Liver.
Liver.
My favorite.
Eggs.
Yeah. Eggs.
Love it.
Right? 1 square inch of red meat, whether it's venison, elk, moose, beef is the most nutrient dense. And when I say nutrient dense, I don't mean the summation of all vitamins.
Bioavailability.
It's the bioavailability, but it's also the essential nutrients, right?
Yeah.
There's essential fats, and then there's fats that aren't essential. Saturated fat is essential.
That's right.
Right? Certain fats are not essential. So eating beef, that was a huge thing for a long time, right? Don't eat salt, don't eat beef. I'm telling you to eat both of them. And I'm not a doctor. I can't make medical claims, but it seems to me that most people at any age, whether they're a young person or an old person, that I coach through this, again, I'm giving advice. I'm not telling them to do something. I'm giving them advice and they follow it. When they eat red meat, they add 2 things: red meat, eggs, butter, so more than 2 things, and salt into their diet, and an abundance of salt, good salt. Their health does a radical turn for the better. Like exponentially. You've noticed a massive change. Blood pressure gets lowered, things like that. Again, not making medical claims.
Too. That's the interesting
Energy production, right?
I had to start adding a little 1/16 of a teaspoon of salt to my my intro workout.
Yeah, I mean for plasma volume, right
especially
before you
people
go
who are
in.
sweating a lot.
Yeah.
You need to replenish your electrolytes.
Right.
Yeah.
And most people don't realize this too about protein. They're not getting adequate enough protein. So we mentioned red meat, but chicken's a good source of protein. We mentioned eggs.
Mike is
Fish.
a gram per pound of weight.
That's what I recommend for most people.
Meats.
Yeah.
Whole foods, whole meats. I mean, you could eat it.
I eat chicken thighs a lot. I don't really go for the chicken breast
thighs.
anymore.
Yeah, I stay away from big fish. It's like some fish.
Yeah,
stay away from.
large predatory
Shrimp are high
fish.
in cholesterol. Yeah, like there's whole foods that obviously aren't incredibly good for you. And what I meant to say by bioavailable is sometimes people will buy things. Like magnesium's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
They'll take the citrate, they'll take the magnesium that's meant for you to crap.
Glycinate.
Yeah. And it's like you need to take the right kind of magnesium. And when you eat like a piece of liver, you have all of these. There may not be as much as the pills you're taking bought over the counter, but that stuff's going right into your body.
And there's cofactors
and
actually.
it's going
too. Yeah.
into your body. So it's not like you're
It's
just
almost like God knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why the Indians, when they go out and they got something, they went straight for the organs first.
Exactly.
Because they were depleted and they wanted to get their minerals
Well,
and their vitamins.
when people
right.
say they feel the life of the animal, what they're referring to is, and maybe that's true because I don't know. Maybe that is true. They actually feel the soul of the animal. I don't know. However, imagine being in ketosis, you're running this animal down or whatever it is, and then you finally get the most nutrient dense food on the planet, and you're eating it raw right there, and you're drinking the blood of the animal. Yeah, you'd probably get kind of high from that.
Yeah, I get high off of Gatorade.
Exactly.
If I'm sitting there at the end of a workout and I've been doing a really long, you take that, you feel that sugar, all that stuff, it lights you up.
Yeah. Food
absolutely.
is drugs. Yeah.
Yeah. But so that's a
something
really
that Shannon
good point.
says too is for you guys is stay on the outside of the grocery store. You would tell me, don't go to those inner aisles. Anything that's you stay on the
Stay away from the
outside.
processed
Get
stuff.
into the
meat,
the
meat,
coolers,
veggies, and then on the inside,
Yep.
go for the good mayonnaise. Like we have local stores here. You know, the real
lucky.
mayonnaise, right? Yeah. The avocado oils, the apple cider vinegars, that sort of thing. You know, a couple of spices.
And I wanted to point one thing out about vegetable selection. So for a while, we used to buy purely organic.
Mhm.
It's very expensive. There are some fruits and vegetables that you should buy organic, and usually it's a thin skin. So like apples, cucumbers, anything, tomatoes, buy organic because those pesticides aren't penetrating that fruit. If they have like a banana or something with a thicker rind, like a substantial rind that's protecting the fruit, the meat of the fruit, I usually can make an exception on that, and you can save some money that way. But the pesticides they do use, especially like with apples, I eat a lot of cucumbers, so I look at the cucumbers, peppers, that kind of stuff where you're actually eating the rind. That kind of stuff actually will build up in your body, and you want to stay away from those kind of things. Those are actually poisons.
Well, it ruins your
they're-
gut
and-
microbiome,
yeah,
like we
exactly.
spoke
Hey,
about.
it's
Killing
meant to kill
things.
bugs. It's
Gonna
going to
kill
kill those
things
little
inside
bugs
you.
inside of you.
Exactly.
You know, they're just smaller
So if you
bugs.
want to save money and
Same
you're
thing with
like
bugs.
me, you want to buy the right things that are organic, and try and save money with some of the stuff you don't have to buy organic, you know, and you're not going to do yourself any harm.
Yeah, like a lot of times, you know, I used to think that you needed to buy grass-fed, grass-finished beef, and I still think that that's a good idea because that's what they ate typically. But cows are actually one of the only animals, ruminant animals, that can eat hay and things, and things like corn. I know that, you know, corn is not the greatest, but they're actually one of the animals, if not the only animal, that can eat it, and it doesn't actually affect the animal in a much negative way that it would us.
I like the way it tastes when it's got corn in its
A
diet.
grain fed.
It's a little sweeter.
I like
sweeter.
it grain
Yeah, I
finished.
do like
Right,
the way the
marble's
fat
a little
tastes.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing is, because people are thinking, wow, you know, grass fed, grass finish is, you know, whatever, $20 a pound or whatever it is. You don't have to do that, but if you're eating beef and it's from a good source and it's a good quality, it's not like low bottom of the barrel. That's really good to get in. And you will notice I've had a lot of pushback, especially from women. I don't know why. You know, maybe they just like meat a little bit less. But when they start having red meat every single day, they think they're going to gain weight and all this. They start
sure.
losing weight.
yeah.
They feel great. Their hair, they notice, especially over 40.
It's
My
filthy.
hair looks great. I know.
Collagen.
One of the
Don't stay away from
Isn't
from
it
that
interesting
Yeah.
that they're trying to tell us for years that beef is bad for you, but really,
Well,
I wanted
beef,
to bring that
salt,
up.
sugar,
I
yeah.
wanted to bring that up. So people will try and do their own research, you know, and they'll go on Google and they'll type in, and then all of a sudden there is some clinical studies saying coffee is bad for you.
Yep.
well, Google
I looked
also
at
tells you that men can have babies.
right.
So.
So
Word
I'm
of
trying to-
internet.
So look at the clinical
trust
study. I did
Bonjour.
this with red meat, and actually Jordan Peterson validated it because I was saying this for a while. And Jordan Peterson's on a carnivore diet, so all he eats is red meat. I mean, he has a little bit of salt and lamb. Yeah,
That's
so
all he's eating.
That's
I think
it.
Organs too.
And so I looked at this study, and what happened was they had a bunch of people that were claiming they ate red meat. Now, by virtue of the fact they ate red meat, they also drank and smoke a lot. So these people, these groups that they were studying on, these controlled
Well, it's
groups,
actually worse than that.
they had a lot. Well, yeah, it can get worse than that.
No, it was worse because they were eating. So if somebody ate a cheeseburger from McDonald's,
It's red
they
meat.
included them in that group because
Pepsi, fries, all this other
Yeah,
stuff. It's
so
not
that's
just
not
red
genuine
meat.
right.
at
Right.
all.
So you have to take these things with a grain of salt, no
worthless
pun
studies.
intended, when
They
you're
are
taking
worthless
into
studies.
account. They are. They absolutely are worthless studies. And then another point is the thermal energy your body has to put in to take apart that beef is a lot higher than the processed
30% per calorie.
That's right. It's a
Yeah.
lot higher than the processed food you're going to get. So you're actually, your body is working harder to take it apart. So the calories that it's worth are not going to be reflective the same way it would be a processed garbage food, which your body's going to take apart and store immediately.
So what
and
that
eat the
means?
gristle. Eat the gristle.
yeah.
Eat that stuff,
Eat the
man.
fat off the steak,
Eat the,
man.
eat the
It's good stuff.
tendons. Eat
gristle.
that stuff. That stuff's important, man. That's like a part of
stuff.
having, especially if you are carnivore.
Yeah.
Eat
You
the
need
organs.
it all.
Eat the tendons. Eat the whole animal. You know
And what
that's
you were
where
speaking
all the
about,
yeah, but
nutrients
don't be.
Oh, yeah,
but
that's
do
right.
not be.
Collagen,
Don't be
fiber.
shocked by these
It's in there.
clinical studies
Yeah.
and these things that come and throw sticks into the spokes. Look at what's going on there. Look at the control groups. Take it apart, man. Because like Mike was saying, in the beginning, in the 1930s, when you have Crisco and all this stuff, there's a lot of propaganda in food. There's a lot of money
It's a
that's
lot of
meant to
money.
be made,
Yeah.
and they're the people who
Marketing.
are funding these studies a lot of the time. So guys like
Pretty
Chris
much
Pollock,
every time.
Yeah,
Right,
check out the
right.
the sugar studies in the 70s. It's insane. They're telling you that our empty calories zero. I mean, they had all this science to go behind
Coca-Cola-
why sugar's
99% of scientists agree with those
Garbage.
who fund their
Yeah,
studies.
Coca-Cola was
99%, baby.
Coca-Cola was
Show
found
me
to
the
not
money.
contribute to diabetes from the Diabetic Foundation, whatever it was. Guess who funded this
Coca-Cola.
study? And that's a fact. That's
Oh,
not
that's
even.
right, Mike.
That's not propaganda.
Oh, I was gonna say I dug into these studies a lot too, and partially this was from listening to Paul Saladino, who's like the carnivore MD
Yeah.
guy. So he
It's got good
he
information.
pointed that if you read any of those headlines of any of the studies that show up on any sort of major news article, they are completely worthless because they're mostly epidemiology studies, I believe is the term,
Right.
which are basically survey studies.
Yes.
And you're having people self-report their diets.
People lie.
And then it's usually on like a specific item. So it's like you said with the red meat, it'll survey people, have them report their occurrences of eating red meat, and it doesn't really take into effect all the other stuff. So then red meat looks bad,
Yeah.
and they're eating fries and a Coke with it, and then the vegan diet looks good. Well, you're also dealing with two different groups of people. Someone that chooses voluntarily a vegan diet likely has other health
Yes.
practices in
better,
place.
better.
Yeah.
Probably
that are
riding
gonna
his
have better
bike,
outcomes.
working out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they're worthless studies.
Because they
Absolutely
think
worthless.
that going vegan is healthier, therefore a healthier-minded person,
Yeah, exactly.
regardless if they're correct or not, has the propensity to want to work out more and things like that.
Right, because 80% of their lifestyle's healthy.
Well, they're doing it
versus
for
the
health
diet.
reasons.
Yes,
right.
they have
So-
more. Yeah, exactly. It's more congruent.
And what
with
you were
a healthy
talking about with the
lifestyle.
thermic effect, that's really important because a lot
Really
of people don't understand when you're eating all this protein. The number one thing that people say when they go on a diet and I put them on a vertical approach is they say, I can't eat all that food. And oftentimes they can't.
They can't. Yeah. that's true.
Oftentimes they're eating all this food. They're eating their raw carrots with their meals. They're eating their ground beef. They're eating
hard
potatoes.
work to
and they're
chew
like,
all that good food, bro.
yeah, I
well,
can't do it.
You know what what's an interesting study is why people need so many braces is because
It's
the
true.
kids aren't chewing food.
You're not using
They're
your jaw.
drinking there. These soft foods, the mandibles
true.
are not working. So their teeth do not align.
You should actually never remove your wisdom teeth. That's another thing. That's actually because of our soft diet.
Yeah, go look at the guys.
very
Go
true.
look at the Africans.
Yeah.
These guys are gnawing on grass. Their teeth look perfect.
Well, they use their teeth as a vice as well. So a lot of like
These
nomadic
guys,
tribes and people
yeah.
who are still hunter-gatherers actually use their teeth. So when you see a lot of these skeletons where you're seeing these large jaws, they're actually using their mouths.
Hey,
So
it's
people think,
huge.
oh, they're not intelligent or this and that. They're actually super intelligent
I
and
don't know
they're
if anybody's-
super in shape.
I
And
don't
they're
know if
super strong.
anybody's-
And your face will look better too.
Yeah.
By the way,
Sure.
you
Yeah,
will
yeah.
look more. You will have a more
Giga
appealing.
Chad.
You have
Giga
more
Chad
appealing
jaw.
face if you're chewing your food. So a lot of these people, when they're used to a diet where they have these super caloric dense garbage foods, when you give them a big plate of food that's high in nutrients, they you have to finish all this food. They're not used to that. They're not used to chewing for 30 minutes straight. They don't know what that's like.
Well, most of the
covered-
time your jaw gets actually burnt out. If you eat a soft diet and you start eating a whole diet, one of the complaints that I get is my jaw hurts, and I'm thinking, yeah, because you're eating smoothies. You know, people are making smoothies all the time. Look, I have shakes, here and there, but I like red meat. I love a good ribeye. I love steak. What you mentioned about the thermic effect is very important because there's things like NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is basically like, park further away from the grocery store. You're going to burn calories there. Do
Take
the
the
laundry
stairs.
after you eat. Take the stairs. Good point. Things like that. But the thermic effect of food. So 30% of the calories coming from protein, the protein calories. So remember, if you're eating ground beef and it's 80-20 and there's 500 calories, well, that's not 30% of 500. That's 30%
That's right.
of
Yeah.
the 20. Okay.
That's right.
But when it's chicken, let's say it's 95% of the calories are coming from protein. 30% of those are burned metabolically just
by digest. Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So
I mean, let that sink in. That's such a big point for
Well,
you
think
guys.
about it. Your body has to break down these nutrients, so it's working to digest.
Requires energy.
It requires energy. You're actually programming your body too, which is excellent.
Very
so
important.
After
Firing
time,
up your
you're
metabolism.
programming your body to understand this kind of food and that process. When you eat the food and you choose like a nice piece of whole grain bread or something like that, you'll notice it becomes sweeter in your mouth. That's because the enzymes are already taking over and the digestion is starting to happen.
Salivary
Yeah,
amylase.
when you chew your meat, you'll notice the same
Right.
things start to happen. And there's this next dimension of flavor that you get that I really enjoy. And that's my signal. Yep, I'm ready to swallow this food. I've done my job chewing.
because chewing is absolutely a part of digestion, and you need to take your time with it. And notice how food tastes.
It's the number one
chew
problem.
that food.
Enjoy
Don't just
it.
swallow big globs of stuff, guys.
That's-
Chew your food, enjoy it, and masticate it. Turn it into a paste.
We
before
don't
you
have
swallow it.
gizzards, you
So
know.
this is the number one problem with people as well. So I had the pleasure of learning from Dr. Sachin Patel. He's a functional medicine doctor. He actually renounced, if I have this correctly, his doctorate because he doesn't think that doctors are doing a good
Guy's
job at all.
angry. He's a mad
Well,
guy.
He's actually
Really
not.
angry guy.
He's not angry. He's actually doing a lot of good work, in my opinion, from what I've seen. And I don't know every functional medicine doctor, but he owns the Living Proof Institute. He's helped countless people, change their health around. People that had cancer, things like that. Again, I understand you can't say that medically and whatever. However, I've seen it, and I've had the pleasure of learning and being certified through him. And honestly, what he taught me was the first thing is chew your food. And a lot of people actually turn away from meat because they don't chew their food and they have low betaine hydrochloric acid in their stomach. Most people that don't crave meat have very poor digestion. Now, as a caveat, I would say most people have poor digestion. So if you're listening to this right now, the odds are 99 out of 100, you have poor digestion. And when I mean poor, I mean it's not optimal.
It's not absorbing.
It's not
breaking
absorbing
down.
because you're not what you eat. You could eat like, there could be, there's 5 guys here and all 5 of us could eat the exact same meal. You could even calorically restrict it to I'm 240 pounds, you're 190 pounds, you're 175 pounds, and you could put it calorically correct, but we eat the same food and maybe you would absorb it twice as well as I would. So there's something to be said about even the foods that you eat.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not absorbing the food, what is it doing? People go, like vitamins.
Well,
Oh,
it's like look at the other end too. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're eating it, also look at what you're leaving behind. Take a peek in the toilet.
Look at your poop.
If your turds look like crappy turds, like meaning they're all coming apart and there's no form to it, and you're diagnosing your turd
Yeah.
at that point in time.
That's
You
it.
can
Right.
tell a lot from your digestion.
that's important.
It's
Yeah.
it's top to bottom.
Well, that's a good
It's
place
top-
to end, guys, with turds because we could go on with that forever. So you guys' stories are awesome. We love you guys and wealth of knowledge. We're gonna have them on again. We'll go more into diet, but I think diet's such a huge thing. Number one problem in this country is cardiac problems, and then it goes down. A lot of that stuff can be negated by the diet advice that you're hearing today. Simple things. So put them into practice. Take care of your kids, and let's end in a nice prayer, guys.
Sounds
and
good.
maybe we'll eat some food later.
Yeah.
Let's eat.
Chew it. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for these beautiful men today. Thank you for this awesome new podcast studio that we've been blessed with. All your creation, how you made things, how integrated everything is, and how much of a part every little tiny minute atom and quirk is a part of everything else in this world, and how it all is made to work together, Lord. And that's part of your character. You made everything with a purpose, and every one of our purposes bleeds and crossfades into each other. So give us that love and those eyes to see your beauty in all things, Lord, and that respect to dive deep and study and research and get deep into discipline, deep into pain, get into the suffering, Lord, and always give you the glory. Thank you for salvation, Jesus. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.